everybody. Welcome back to the next episode of The Lost Guys.
Yay!
Woo! How are y'all doing? I hope everyone's been having a really great summer and probably an even better fall coming up. We are very glad to be back. We've been able to get all of the episodes that we've had in the can. We've convinced Jonas to get them up on the site, and so we're very, very happy for that. And
we used aggressive tactics.
Aggressive negotiations, yes, which involved basically begging and pleading. Sorry, Jonas. And
please release our show, please, sir.
Please. Yep. But today we are going to be talking about some pretty fun things. And we had a bit of a conversation over how exactly to title this episode, because the theme could go very blue very quickly. So they made a cartoon of that is kind of what we settled on. But really, the true theme of this is I cannot believe they took this usually a horribly violent adult live action R-rated movie and turned it into a kid's cartoon. And so, we're going to kick it off with, first of all, saying hello to Nolan Thunder. And
missed you guys. How's everybody doing?
Yeah. And the mysterious Martin Stone.
Hello, everyone.
And I know that you both gentlemen have been very busy. Nolan, you've been on that game place, and it's been a heck of a ride so far, I think.
Yeah, no, the support for so far has been crazy. It's rising so fast. I gotta give all the credit to everyone I've been working with. Spencer, Marvin, Jonas, Culture, Loki, Space Dave, all the crew. They are doing amazing, and I couldn't do this without them. So that team is amazing. If you like games, check it out. It's been amazing.
What if we want to play Concord?
You can get out.
Like too soon. Anyway, we're here to talk about cartoons, and you know what? If we're gonna go this route, we might as well go hard. We're going to talk about the very first cartoon that came to mind when we were talking about this, which is, right here, you will see, as I can pull it up, Rambo.
Heck yeah.
You guys are silent.
You know what a really deep psychological examination of PTSD of Vietnam veteran soldiers as a book needs? It needs an adaptation as an action movie, and then it needs a kids show.
I can hear the money from here.
Well, it's funny. You sort of look at the rant, like, what was it that made an executive in the 80s? Okay, so this is Rambo: The Freedom Force, and my question to you, gentlemen, is what was it that made an executive look at the Rambo movies and think, this would make a really good kids cartoon?
I guess it would come down to, because of course, end of the day, money, but I think it comes down to the risk versus reward. And you have to look at what were these studios of, what was their size and what were they betting on? Because you have to take a look at, there's a kind of a duality of like the 80s and the 90s. You have your very, like old school, like grandma, everything violent is, problematic. But on the flip side, you got the really edgy side of things where boys will be boys and they can have like guns and blood and stuff like that because they do that with their toys and the playgrounds and stuff. So you have these two kind of counters at each other, very different from the counters that you see today, which is kind of a topic within itself. But I think it kind of came down to, if you think there was money to be made and a lot of it, and you saw just the mounds of money these more adult-aimed properties were making, if they felt like they could squeeze a kid's show out of it and there was money, I think they were just like, hey, worth a shot. And I guess it didn't really come back to bite them very much, because you didn't see a lot of newspaper articles with public outcry over a Rambo cartoon. And if there was, I guess I missed it.
Well, I think on this one, they saw the money that Hasbro was making hand over fist with G.I. Joe and said, hey, where can we get in on that military action?
You think that's what it was? Like,
I think so.
I mean, looking at the Rambo movies, they are, as you said, a PTSD veteran. They're called, like, they have blood in the title, right? So, like,
the first two do, yeah.
The first two do. So to think that these would be appropriate kid shows just blows my mind. I mean, look at that. Look at that combat knife he's got in that photo there. Does he ever actually use it on anybody?
Well, not the way he
there to
does
look
in the movies.
I was gonna say
it's there to look pretty. Like, it's probably there. I would guess, as someone who hasn't seen the cartoon, I would guess it's there to look cool in the theme song. He does like a cool slicing motion, and there's like a yellow line behind it. But yet, you probably only ever see him use it in the cartoon to like cut vines and stuff because of censorship at the time.
Yeah, throw it at the wall to hit something or cut vines. Yeah, it was basically, so Rambo leads the Force of Freedom, which is a bunch of elite warriors. I'm pretty sure that Shredder has a voice in it. Uncle Phil from.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think he was a voice.
I love how many voice roles he did.
Oh yeah, prolific. But yeah, I always saw it as a G.I. Joe ripoff.
That's a fair point, actually. Like, I think I hadn't really considered that angle before, but now that you've sort of given it voice, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Martin, because there's no other explanation for that. You had G.I. Joe, which was the quintessential sort of military show, and I mean, even that technically was questionable, right? The military in general having guns and tanks and missiles, like weapons of mass destruction, shooting at each other, and yet no one ever died, no one ever really got hurt. All the laser beams missed.
It was the same as for A-Team, but that was primetime TV.
But there was also an A-Team cartoon. Oh no, a Mr. T cartoon. Sorry, but
there was.
But talking about this and talking about that knife, it made me realize that the He-Man sword and the sword from the Thundercats, they never got any blood on them either, eh?
You know what? You're right.
And I think there was actually something with the He-Man cartoon where one of the producers had said at one point that I think like in 90% of the cartoons, He-Man does not actually use violence to win. Like he doesn't physically attack people. Like he doesn't actually punch them or hit them or anything. Like he'll throw like a boulder at them or, kick
or more
the
likely
ground
he throws a boulder to block their path. He does something clever.
To block their path, or like he'll stomp the ground to create an earthquake and knock them off of something. And when you go back and you're kind of like, wait a minute, that's right. And you look at the He-Man design, you look at like the muscles and the sort of the barbarian type of aspect of it with a giant sword. That's pretty wild. And something else that came to mind as we were talking about this, which I had forgotten about, was Conan the Barbarian, the animated series.
Oh, what?
Conan the Adventurer.
Conan the Adventurer, yes, where they classically say, "What is best in life?" What's that quote? Conan, what is best in life?
To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the
lamentations of the women, and to eat your breakfast cereal.
Oh, that's another.
They made a cartoon of this.
Oh, it was actually pretty. This one was pretty good.
It sounds like it would be pretty fun, actually. But I just can't believe with the stuff I've seen that's happened in the first Conan movie. Wow.
Well, okay, that's a whole other conversation, because the Conan movies, as great as they are, and I love John Milius' script for the first one, it has nothing to do with Conan, the Howard books.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's so much farther afield from canon than anything else, and it's hilarious because the Howard fans really don't complain as much as everybody else does, because the Conan movies are really kind of awesome.
Oh, well, that's nice to see. And I guess we're at an age now where people can spot the difference, unless you're me and you're oblivious to it. But maybe at the end of the day, maybe the cartoon was. Here's a question. For any of these, is there any instance where the cartoon was better than the movie?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
I think there's an argument to be made by some people. I'm not saying myself here, but I think there's an argument by probably a good chunk of people that the real Ghostbusters might have been better.
No.
Them's fighting words, I think, Nolan.
Is that a hot take? I didn't think that was a hot take.
I would say that's a hot
strong fan base for that.
What do you think? Back me up here.
I think it might be better than the second Ghostbusters movie. And definitely better than the 2016 Ghostbusters movie, but not the original.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, definitely better than 2016. Yeah,
everything's better than the 2016 Ghostbusters, though.
Yes, that's true. Except for the upcoming Crow reboot, which I've heard is supposed to be abysmal.
It's not upcoming anymore.
You know it's out, right?
Oh, it's out. Oh, yeah, and it bombed. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Sorry, I'm completely out of it. Well, you know what? We're getting off track. Okay, so...
But if you like Crow, be sure to watch our Crow episode. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. So the next cartoon that I present to the discriminating audience for their consideration is another one of those WTF. Although, you know what? Not so much of a WTF moment, frankly, because I do see where where they were coming from when they decided that this would make a good cartoon. And that is RoboCop, the animated series. So again, the movies are horrifically violent. People melting from acid and just getting even the titular character essentially getting, vaporized and stitched back together into this horrible robotic cybernetic monstrosity. And yet they shot in
very personal places.
Shot in very personal places, and yet they turned it into a cartoon. And I can see why, because the design of RoboCop, even though it was a really gory live action film, is very toyetic.
It screams, "Make me into a toy."
Yeah,
absolutely. Now here's a question. I kind of wonder. I wonder if this cartoon was something that was greenlit before the movie came out. Like the exec was like, ooh, how can we capitalize on this whole RoboCop thing? I'm sure it's going to be a stupid kids movie. And then they see it and they're like, oh. Or would this be something that came out around the time of like RoboCop 3 when they were trying to, broaden the market a bit?
Is that screenshot from the later RoboCop cartoon or from the original one?
There were two of them?
I think it's the original.
Okay.
But I could be wrong. And audience,
if
you were
listening, more than one?
And then please, let us know in the comments down below. I think this is that's hard to say. I don't know.
Because it's kind of got a late 90s look to it.
Yeah, I'm looking at that scientist's hair, and that's very late 90s. Hang on, I'm gonna have to check this out. But why don't we talk about all of the gore and the violence that they've omitted in this cartoon while I look this up?
Well, and the drug addiction.
Sure, they omitted it.
Oh, and the drug addiction, yes.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the basis of RoboCop. One of the last good men in Detroit is killed by a bunch of drug dealers and addicts, and he's brought back by a soulless corporation to be their soulless judicial killing machine.
That doesn't sound like a kid's cartoon. I don't know what does.
But you're right, Martin. Actually, that is from that image that we've got up on screen is from a later cartoon. So there was a previous RoboCop cartoon, which was, I suppose, back in the 80s, which featured an even friendlier looking RoboCop, complete with his big gun, which you don't see much.
Epic, though, I got to admit.
Yeah, and he's kind of got that whole mono eye thing going there. But
was the later cartoon, was that aimed at adults, or was that one also trying to bank on the kid market?
I think that was I want to say it was probably more teen market, early teens.
Oh, got you. That would make sense. We were by the late 90s, that's when they were really starting to get more cartoons that were aimed at older audiences. Like we were in a post-Simpsons world, South Park.
There was also a syndicated TV show for RoboCop where he had a holographic sidekick in his car. So we got the movies, we got the syndicated TV show, we got the animated TV show. Was there a board game? Was there a radio show?
There were toys. One of the interesting.
Did they make RoboCop the flamethrower?
Yeah, seriously. No, there were always toys of these movies. I remember that RoboCop had a toy line. Aliens, like chest bursting
Oh,
yeah.
aliens
I
had a
remember the
toy
commercials
line.
very well. Terminator
Predator,
had them.
Terminator.
Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of Terminator, because like before we started this episode, I was wondering a lot of like, okay, what are some adult aimed movies that became cartoons? But I think by the time I was growing up, I think a lot of those had kind of died out. So I don't know if their merchandise wasn't selling, or maybe they were eventually like, okay, maybe this was a bad idea. But I do remember specifically seeing a lot of toys based off of adult aimed movies. Because I remember like when Terminator Salvation came out, I was like, they're making toys off of the Terminator? And I didn't
Yeah.
even know about the past with that, like aliens and stuff.
And it's really interesting because you sort of look at this and you think your original thought is you need some sort of commercial vehicle in order to be able to drive sales of these toys. And they obviously couldn't have that. I mean, you can't you you can't take your kid to see Aliens, for example, or you couldn't take your kid to see Aliens back in the day. I'm sure you can now, but I guess they were aiming this at the parents. Hey, we just saw this horribly violent movie where people had their face hugged by this alien creature and this demonic entity pops out of their chest, but that's a really cool action figure. I'm sure my kid would love this.
Well, it's like I just got out seeing Alien Romulus here for a while, and that scared me legitimately as an adult. Like I had shivers after seeing that movie, let alone like a 10-year-old seeing this. And it's funny because like in the 90s, for example, there was all that controversy about Batman Returns, like that one Happy Meal promotion they had, how problematic it was. But yet Aliens went unchecked. Are you mad?
Well, because 80s wine moms didn't wake up early enough to watch Saturday morning cartoons with their kids. So they didn't know about these.
Whereas McDonald's, when you mess with Ronald, you've gone too far.
So moving along, another sort of head scratcher of a cartoon was, this one right here, the Toxic Crusaders from Troma Studios. So the original live action film featured a janitor who fell into a vat of toxic waste and became this horribly mutated yet powerful a cross between
Avenger?
The Toxic Avenger, that's what it is, right? So it was obviously not a PG movie, and yet they turned this into a cartoon. And there's a theme I'm starting to run across with a lot of these kind of cartoons. There's a lot of body horror that's been kidified, right? Like RoboCop,
That's true,
for example. Yeah. Toxic Crusaders with this basically this mutant who originally was going around killing people, but now he's kind of his eyes are a little bit lopsided, but he looks very friendly and happy.
Another accordion girl on the left.
I don't know.
Like, I want to know her story.
Another one of those shows which wasn't based on an adult property per se, but which featured body horror and chthonic demonic entities was called Inhumanoids. I don't know, Nolan, have you ever heard of this one?
No, but it looks freaking awesome. It's like you take the end of Fantasia and you mix it with like those awesome toy lines they used to have where you made the monsters.
Well, it's kind of like that. Like, I mean, the basic conceit is that you had a group of scientists who were exploring what was going on below the surface of the earth, and they come across all these basically like gigantic alien, as I said, chthonic demons. And so the Inhumanoids, as they call them, and so these scientists basically had to suit up in these techno suits and fight them off. And I guess every week there were sort of hijinks and whatnot. Like even the guy on the right here kind of looks a bit like a Cthulhu.
How have I never heard of this? This looks awesome.
Well, I think you heard of it later on when it became Pacific Rim. Doesn't that it sounds like the same setup as Pacific Rim?
There is quite there again, Martin. You're connecting those dots. That's really Wow, I hadn't even made that connection. That's on. Wow, well done.
Thank you.
Well, one of the things about this cartoon that really sort of struck me, and where the body horror aspect came in, is that there was this one episode where the guy on the right there, his name is Decompose, he grabs like the heroine of the cartoon, like pierces her cheek with his claw, drops her, and then she mutates into this like horrifically evil monster, this giant monster, and they have to fight her off. And I think they get her back to normal again after. But seeing that process of mutation was pretty grueling.
That reminds me of how like a lot of like in the 90s, a lot of people rented like Akira, the anime from Blockbuster, and they assumed it was a kids movie, and then
that went kind of sideways really quickly. But another one which is a bit, I don't know, would you say body horror? Kinda. Let me know what you guys think on this one. It's Teen Wolf the cartoon.
Yeah. I mean, the werewolf thing, I don't really associate with that with like Cronenberg body horror stuff, but yeah, I can see it.
Well, I mean, an American Werewolf in London, like that's certainly.
Oh, yeah, you got me there. That's fine practical effects.
that is the definition of body horror. And so, like, I mean, even in, I think this was based on the Michael J. Fox live action movie, which wasn't, anything horrifically terrible or the like, but at the same time, it's a werewolf, which is considered essentially a scary monster. It's a human who turns into a wolf-like being against their will when the full moon comes out. And then they turn into sorry, go on.
The movie had this sort of standard package of inappropriate things that is going to be in a 80s high school movie too.
Yeah.
There's drinking, there's swearing, there's hooking up. Hey, let's make it into a cartoon.
Yeah, and let's put them on a skateboard. Totally radical, guys. But nothing. Well, okay. So there were also cartoons that were based on, shall we say, very mature, dirty humored or potty mouthed or potty humored. What do you want to call that? Movies. Perverted. I don't know if I go perverted that far, but
blue.
Blue. Yeah, I guess like adult humor, adult sexual humor, innuendo, that sort of thing. And one of the standouts is Police Academy, the cartoon series.
Don't forget the riot and the race jokes.
Yeah, the riot and the race jokes. That's true. So, I mean, again, one of those things where you've got this, you can see that there is something toyetic, cartoony about the cast of characters. You got Hightower, Maloney, you've got Bobcat Goldthwait's character, the guy who makes all like the weird noises. So
Michael Winslow,
they do lend themselves. What's that?
Michael Winslow?
Michael Winslow. Yeah, that's right. And so does lend itself, I guess, to a cartoon if you really take those archetypes to their extreme. But there was a lot of stuff in there that I think if you had grown up watching the Police Academy cartoon and you as a young kid perhaps found the recording in your parents' DVD or VHS shelf and put it on, you'd probably get grounded for watching that afterwards.
I think that's fair to say.
And even after the whole 80s trend, they were still going along with cartoons based on inappropriate, what would you say? Inappropriate, not so inappropriate, but spicy movies and adult content. We'll put it that way. One of those things I would say was probably this, which is just a second.
Roll, please.
Yeah, StreamYard's lagging. Beetlejuice, the cartoon. So this is kind of timely given we had the new movie Beetlejuice coming out. And
you've said it 3 times now.
Yeah, I have. And he hasn't appeared, thankfully. But again, it's just one of those things where in the movie, in the cartoon, Beetlejuice is kind of like this friendly, the ghost with the most fun guy, and Lydia loves hanging around with him and stuff like that. But in the movie, Beetlejuice basically wants to force this underage teenage girl to marry him.
He's the villain.
He's the villain, essentially.
In the movie.
He creates a cat house.
I've been talking to Marvin lately, or hearing his takes a bit, and it's saying how it kind of shocked him when he saw the movie first time. He's like, wait, he's the villain? And it's like, I don't think he's the only one. If you saw the cartoon first, which I think a lot of people did, it's kind of floors you. And I gotta say, though, I do love this art style, though. That is very creative and different. I think it seems like it succeeded in the things it was trying to do differently. Now, did it succeed at building a fan base for the movie? That I don't know.
I call this art style CalArt's precursor.
Oh, yeah, no. How dare you? No, CalArts is ugly. This is nice. This is actually unique and creative.
This was everywhere the same way that CalArts was. So you had like...
the 90s way. Oh.
Yeah, so what... Freakazoid was in the same style, basically.
Freakazoid, jeez.
Yeah, there was a bunch of stuff that was in this style.
Well, I'm going to show you something else that was in that style, which is moving right along. There was also, where are you? I got to close some of these windows because I got way too many of them open. Here we go.
It just shows how many adult cartoons there were. Like, what the heck?
Yeah. So anyone remember this guy here, The Mask?
I remember The Mask.
Yeah. That was quite the interesting cartoon, I'll tell you that.
I know, I do know of like a scene. I think one of the episodes got banned because I think wasn't one of the episodes like the plot line, like there was like a woman who didn't have her clothes or something. She had like a bomb strapped to her or something, and they had to like stop it or something. Like it was something crazy like that for a kid show.
Yeesh, that sounds 90s.
That does sound 90s, but on the spectrum of things, The Mask isn't that much of a wild adult movie in the sense that Rambo would be, or even Police Academy. But I would say though that the other, I guess, the sister cartoon that they made out of Jim Carrey's franchises was Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, and that
I don't like that art. Oh, that
had a lot more. The movie, of course, had a lot more innuendo, and as of course these days rather anyway, I won't even go there. But all that to be said, Ace Ventura: Pet Detective was a cartoon, minus arguably what made Ace Ventura the funniest, which are all the really, really dirty jokes he would always pull off. I don't ever remember watching. Yes.
Now that I think about it, the Mask cartoon show coming from the Mask movie is not that big a move, because Stanley is basically good-hearted, and there's a couple of things here or there that you might not want kids to see. But the movie toned down the comic book a lot.
Oh yeah. So,
so it was already being filtered for mass audiences at that point.
The comic book was just off the wall. But what blew me away in researching this is that apparently The Mask and Ace Ventura had a crossover.
I had no idea.
That is insane. Actually, was Jim Carrey connected in any way to this?
I don't think so. No.
Is that attached to his rear end?
You know what? That looks like it is.
That looks like handcuffs to me, because look, they both are doing that with their arms, so they might be captured.
Maybe, but by like aliens, because I see some like iPods coming up. Not iPod, like
iStocks. Yeah.
iStocks,
Or maybe he's doing his like Mr. Ass.
Hey, language.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Butt. Sorry, Jonas. We'll have to bleep that out. But anyway, this almost makes me want to kind of look it up and watch that, because I've got a soft spot for crossover stuff like this. Like Mask and Ace Ventura meeting together, that could be pretty wild.
We need to do an episode on the weirdest crossovers.
Yeah, that is a fantastic idea, Nolan. We're gonna have to definitely
Jimmy Timmy Power Hour. Let's go.
Because I was saying Magnum PI and Murder She Wrote did a crossover.
No.
What?
Really?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Oh,
and also one with Simon and Simon.
That is
Like Simon Cowell?
No, Simon and Simon. You don't. Okay, wait, we're gonna have to do a Simon and Simon.
We're gonna have to do a Simon and Simon.
Stay tuned.
Moving further afield in the 90s, we also had The Mummy, the animated series. And so
I kind of remember this one a little bit.
Yeah, so we go from comedy horror to family adventure.
Yeah,
That's not so bad.
it's not so bad. Like, I mean, thinking back to the Brendan Fraser Mummy movie, yeah, you got a guy who's been basically buried alive with a flesh-eating scarabs, and he's kind of decomposing at times and whatnot. But there wasn't really that. Like, I mean, if you could handle Indiana Jones, you could handle The Mummy, right? And so I'm thinking it's not that much of a stretch to turn that into a cartoon.
Well, now I do have a little story
Quibble?
here.
Oh,
Well, no, not quibble. Because I took I wanted to take my boys to go see The Mummy when it did its re-release to theaters this last year.
Mm-hmm.
And my 8-year-old daughter insisted on coming along. And I told her, okay, it's going to be a little scary for you. And it was. But as we settled into the theater and they have their snacks and they're enjoying themselves, I'm watching and I realize, oh, wait a second. She's only wearing paint.
Oh, right.
I forgot about that. And then at the end of the movie, the heroine spends most of the end of the movie in her nightgown and she's chained to an altar.
Which is kind of King Kong style, I guess.
Kind of, yeah. But, you know, when I'm sitting with my 13-year-old son, you know, maybe Dad forgot that.
Time to have that conversation.
The greatest moment of every teenage boy's life, the moment Dad forgot.
Yes.
Now, I want to know when Rick
saw. Remember when I first saw Terminator with my dad? We were watching it, and it had that scene where Sarah Connor, you know, the creation of John Connor happened, and it's like, oh, forgot about that scene.
Now, here's I think that scene is burned into every boy's memory, but here's a cartoon which so Martin, you know more about this one than I do. You were saying that this one actually never made it onto the screens, the Operation Aliens.
Well, I don't remember seeing it, but I remember hearing about it.
This looks awesome.
I mean, it looks really violent, and so I'm presuming that this wasn't, you know, something being shown on Saturday mornings in the 80s. But yeah, like I almost wonder if this was kind of one of those only on video, rent this blockbuster, you know, late teens, early 20s, kind of like, hey, do you want to see something cool type of video?
Yeah, I think it came out like in the mid 80s. I was real young, but I think I remember seeing it sort of advertised.
Okay. But it wasn't. You weren't watching it at like 7 a.m. with your bowl of Fruit Loops on a Saturday morning.
Yeah,
right?
or, maybe I didn't see it advertised. Maybe I just heard people talking about it. But yeah, I feel like there was there was a toy tie-in they were gonna do, and yeah,
this looks like something you'd see at 1 a.m. on Spike, but it looks epic.
It's kind of a precursor, the animation style, kind of a precursor to Aeon Flux.
Yeah, you know what? I can do that.
It reminds me of the art that was made for a proposed like Star Trek Aliens crossover they wanted to do for like a comic book once. It kind of has a similar art style. I think it's epic.
Yeah, you can kind of see that there. And, you know, that does bring up a very good point, Martin, with your comment about Aeon Flux, is the fact that in the 80s, they didn't have channels which had late night adult themed cartoons on them, right? Like Aeon Flux or the Max or what have you. And so this about Adult Swim, exactly. So this might very well have been one of the, I guess, you know, prototypical adult themed cartoons, and I know that doesn't sound quite right, for that we saw the explosion of with channels like Adult Swim, that sort of thing. And so that might be worth investigating a little bit more. We're really going on a deep lost dive here. But on that note, that basically sort of wraps up a lot of the cartoons that the cartoons based on adult properties. I'm going to say that very slowly and smoothly. Guys, your thoughts? Were any of these particularly standouts for you?
I think honestly, like, I think they're all really cool, at least for the novelty alone. I think that alien art at the end is like the greatest thing ever made. That was cool. But besides that, I do see why this was pretty cool. Why I think it kind of died out. Because, like I said, I was struggling to kind of come up with some of the stuff that came out post 2000. Like, I remember the Godzilla cartoon they did, which, I mean, that one's already kind of a for everybody sort of thing. But they did a 98 a cartoon based off the 1998 movie that was more popular than the film itself. And it's one of those where, a lot of those toys really didn't do well that was attached to that property. In fact, they canceled a whole line that was going to be based off the cartoon. Yeah. And you have to look at, I'm guessing these cartoons probably didn't push toys as well as they wanted them to, or else I think you'd see more of it now. But I think the bigger thing to look at, which is ironic in the long run, is now we're seeing more adult movies based off of kids' properties. I mean, take it, one of the biggest films of the year, Wolverine and Deadpool. Like, the R-rated superhero movie is becoming a norm now. You had it with Joker, you had it with Venom, Wolverine, Deadpool, and Deadpool's been showing up at like Disney parks and like in the Spider-Man cartoons and stuff like that. And you have to think, like, I really tend to think about, like, for parents now, it seems like the lines are getting blurred yet again. Because when I was young, it seemed like it was pretty obvious of, like, this was for adults, this was for kids, this is boy, this is girl, maybe a little less on the gender things with, like, than compared to, like, the 80s and my generation. But it seems like we're blurring the lines of between what's aimed at adults, what's aimed at kids now. Because how many adult reboots have you been seeing in the past few years? I mean, heck, X-Men 97, that's aimed at adults, not kids. Like, I mean, when I grew up, I mean, it was in the era of Batman the Animated Series, so a lack of censorship on a cartoon isn't anything new. But I think it's kind of coming full circle to where we could see a bit of a renaissance, shockingly, of this sort of thing. What do you guys think?
Well, we have seen a little bit of it. There was a short-lived Fast and Furious cartoon.
Oh my gosh, I don't even remember that.
There is Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
There's stuff like that. I think that I know I'm always having to pull back my own kids from, no, you can't watch that. You give it a couple years, you can watch that. There are these things that they see on YouTube or they hear their friends talking about, or, their mom and I will go see a movie. And can we see it? Well, no, you really can't see that. Like, for instance, my son very proudly and adultly came to me and said, my friends and I have come to the consensus that we do not want to watch The Boys. And I let him know that was never on the table.
Yeah, but that's still a good choice. That show, as someone who appreciated the comic book, I find that show to be just a travesty. But we won't derail too far on that one. Well, I think our conversation today was very fun, and it was kind of neat going down the nostalgic route. And I think these cartoons, all of them really, can be summed up in this one image right here. You see Rambo there on the right, and he's just covering the guy's mouth. He doesn't want him to yell or anything, just to make sure he's okay. That's exactly what he's whispering. Yeah. Whereas in the movie, he'd probably be doing something else. We'll leave that to your imagination. But it has to make you laugh, right? Like, looking at that, you're kind of like, okay, where's that other hand gonna come around and get around his neck there? But anyway, the 80s and the 90s were a special time.
You can't help but smile, though. You can't help but look back on it and laugh, but it's a good kind of laugh, if that makes sense.
I feel like if I was a parent in the 80s and I saw my kids watching this stuff, I'd be like, oh, that is hilarious. And I'd probably join in on with them as well. So anyway, guys, it was a pleasure going down this sort of dark, twisted path of weird, bright, sunny cartoons based on dark, twisted properties. Ooh, that's a good line. Audience, have you seen these cartoons? Did you ever watch any of them? Have you heard of them? Are you thinking about watching them now? what were your thoughts? Leave us your comments down below. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well. As always, if you have any suggestions or ideas for lost media that we should explore, please do let us know. We are very, very open to that sort of feedback. And of course, we love to hear from you guys. Nolan, Martin, do you guys have anything fun coming up?
Let's see here. I got a pretty big announcement coming up here pretty soon, so keep an eye on my X, because I have a little project I've been working on, and by the time this goes up, I think it will be out, and hopefully by the time we record the next episode, I can go ahead and add it to the bio. But if you want to see more lost media mysteries, check out my YouTube channel, Nolan Thunder. I do a documentary series that has a bunch of horror aspects to it, but it's more PG-13, you know. You can kind of watch it with your family. It's all cool. And got some comedy in there. And if you want to hear some of my takes, like I said before, check out that gameplays culture, especially, and all the team there. They work really hard on it. I really recommend checking it out. Martin?
Well, hopefully you can keep finding me here, having a good time with you guys. And also I pop in on Toonie Talk TV, or Toonitown TV. Have a blast with Marvin and his panels.
Yeah, those are always a lot of fun, and they generally turn into sort of de facto Lost Guys reunions, which is pretty neat. And sometimes Luke pops in too, which is neat. Gentlemen, thank you very much. It was a pleasure as always. And audience, thank you for listening to us. And until next time, we are going to get lost.
Get lost.
We hope you enjoyed this presentation of the Lost Guys here on That Pod Place. Be sure to subscribe for more content like it. And you can become a member at That Part Place here on YouTube to see more of the Lost Guys every Friday as soon as the guys record an episode. Let us know your thoughts on this intriguing topic in the comments down below. Please comment, like, and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe to That Part Place Podcasts Online, your source for exclusive content and highlights from WDW Pro, The Pro Show, and That Part Place for all the news that should be fun.